Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. This is a very exciting one. We've got a guest calling all the way in from New York, but we'll get to them shortly. Let's check in with our regular team and see what's up. So, Danette, where are you recording out of today, and how's your week been?
Week's been really good. Lots of travel. Had my last 2 workshops for the year, so that's been quite exciting. And this morning I've driven from the farm to Canberra, and after this and another meeting, Graham and I are heading to Sydney to catch up with some friends of ours and hopefully go out on a boat for the weekend. So looking forward to the weekend.
Very nice.
And the podcast too, because I love this.
Just got to throw in the work there at the end there. Very nice there, Danette. I was going to say, for people that are listening, you aren't doing your last 2 workshops for the year 2025 when this is being released. This is our last one we're actually recording in 2024. Yes. So the workshops haven't dried up in early January.
No, they haven't. No, and it is definitely 2024. So yes, good pointing out, Jez.
Well, great to have you on, Danette, as always. Graham, how are you going this week? How's things?
Hey, Jez. Yeah, good, thanks. Happy Friday the 13th for those of us on the correct side of the equator. Sorry, Lisa, you'll catch up at some point. Excited about Sydney, excited about going out on a boat, more excited about coming back and getting off said boat onto dry land at some point, sans shark. So that'll be fun.
Well, we'll see. It's Australia. You never know. You might make a shark friend. If the movie Finding Nemo is to be believed, the sharks are Aussie and they're friendly, Graham.
And they're called Bruce.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? Are you sure? Was it Bruce? I think it was Bruce. Anyway, time for a different intervention.
Well, great to have you on, Graham, and we're excited to hear in the next episode, which will take place recording-wise probably about 4 weeks from now, whether the sharks did actually land on the boat, or I guess we'll find out. It's a bit of a cliffhanger on this one. Well, we're glad to have you on today anyway, Graham. And Lisa Bodell, you're our guest today. How's your week been?
My week's been great, even better now. I usually don't have this much energy coming up to a Friday, but with you guys, I'm going to come on every week, if that's okay. Greetings from New York. It's good to be here.
Very, very excited to have you. Yes, you're on. Fine. Lock it in.
Every week, I'll be back. Good.
Just to clarify, we may not be on some week, Lisa, but feel free. Have fun.
That's fine. I'll show up and I'll just do it myself. I can do it. We'll figure it out. Thank you. Me and Bruce. Good.
That really will be some magical learning where the magical learning team's not even on. It's just magic. We're magically learning from another country. Well, Lisa, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and we're really excited to chat to you today because there's so many. The topic that you gave us really conjured up a lot of different questions in sort of a lot of different categories. But before we get into any of that, and before we get into our real conversation, for people that may be listening to you and being like, who is this Lisa Bodell? The name rings a bell. Do you want to give people just a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm coming to you, like I said, from New York City, and I'm the head of a company called futurethink, which is my company that I started 20 years ago. And my goal was to teach people how to think differently. I've always been a very creative thinker, but I also have been a business person. I like to make money. So I started a business to help corporations think differently so they could innovate and make more money. As I said, it's been around for 20 years, and now I've got a whole team that helps me go out and train on those things. So it's focused on creativity and innovation, but also on simplification, which I know we're going to talk about today, because that's also another thing that I think is important when it comes to creativity and with how we work.
Well, fantastic, Lisa. We're so excited to have you on. Now, just to sort of bring in the topic that we had today. So I was chatting to someone in your team. We're talking a little bit about what we could talk about. We're talking about different topics, simplification and innovation, helping people debureaucratize the workplace and get back time for work that matters. We were sort of talking about maybe unintentionally giving away our time and the reasons why that's so important to help people say no to the unplanned and unexpected and beat burnout, all things we're very passionate about here on the Magical Learning Podcast. I also love, Lisa, that you are a futurist. It's one of my favorite jobs out there. It's such an interesting one, so I'm so glad we've got you on today. Before we dive into the conversation, I was just going to say, do you have anything that you want to say about the sort of topic and these little bits and pieces?
No, I think it's really timely. The reason I started talking about simplification is because I had to figure it out myself. And I couldn't figure out how I was able to juggle so much, but I just wasn't happy. I think that a lot of people experience that. They feel like they're so organized and they're trying to get so much done, but what's going on? Why is everyone else doing it better than me? And I that's how I set out on this journey to kind of figure it out for myself. I think a lot of people, like authors and speakers, or people like you on podcasts, you probably bring on people that want to talk about topics you're trying to figure out yourself, right? And I think that's how we learn.
Well, then I'm glad we have you on today, Lisa, because this is one that is definitely it's definitely a topic that we talk about a little bit in terms of burnout and stuff like that. But really getting into the crunching down, managing time, and how useful that can be. Is really valuable. And I think to really tee us off, I think Danette's got some great questions. So Danette, do you want to tell us about your questions and why you chose them?
Sure, Lisa, I always ask at least two because I'm always curious. So I will start with my first one, which I really like that focus about why do we unintentionally give away our time? Because time is one of those things you can't get back. And so I'm really curious, sharing and I suppose giving people awareness around why they unintentionally give away time.
Well, there's many reasons, actually. And I think that's because we don't really use our time with intention. We just kind of give it away. We don't realize that it is a limited resource. So that's one of the first things we talk about, right? Which is, why do we get so mad when people waste our money, but we don't get the same level of mad when people waste our time, right? You're never going to get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I think that's something really important is for people to be more intentional about how they use their time. They just give it away. The other reason why I think is people are nice. They do it out of a sense of obligation. It's hard to say no, which I think we'll get into that too. And the final problem I'll tell you, though there are a few more, is that it's very easy for people to take your time, right? Putting something on your calendar in Outlook is very easy. And in fact, while I preach about simplicity, that's an area where I think it would be good to have more friction, not less. So, it starts with intention. And that's how you can decide what you'll say yes to and what you'll say no to. And some of that obligation might fall away because it's important.
I love that answer. And I really like two of those points that we get mad about wasting money, but we don't get mad about wasting time, which is crazy because you can always make more money, but you can't make more time.
100%.
I love that. And also that bit about it is really easy to get into people's calendars. And that friction is a great idea. So I can't wait to explore that. So my next one, because I know that this is an area that pretty much everyone should be improving on, what's your favourite way of saying no to get that time back?
Well, so I think it's situational, but I always like to say, I am so overcommitted right now. I'd love to help, but I absolutely can't do it right now. So, and that's an easy one personally. Now, it's not so easy if you're saying that to your boss, is it? That's a career limiting move. So that's when I tell people, maybe you can't say no, you say yes if. And yes if is a really good technique. It kind of is a riff on an improv technique, yes and. But it sets boundaries on time. And so rather than saying yes to everything, you invite the person requesting that time into the decision-making process rather than thinking they can give it away. Yes, I can do this if we have a trade-off on priorities. I can do something later. I can spend more money. You get the idea. So I like that approach because it allows the person asking, or it enables the person asking to really have to think through what they're willing to trade off as well.
Love that. And I would imagine part of actually being able to do that second conversation is totally actually understanding what you've got on your plate as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. That's one of the problems, right? What I like to say is that we like to think that we're leading our lives, but really what we're doing every day is executing our calendars. And that's very different, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when someone says, what did you spend your day doing? I joke that most people, the first thing that pops into their head is a visual of their calendar. And they start saying, well, they go through the list of everything chronologically because they live by that clock, right? Not the compass. And that's the shift we want to make, where we literally are just executing our calendars. And so while we're getting things done, we may not be doing the right things. And that's the intention problem we have to get back to.
Such great answers. And I love that compass versus clock. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'll hand back to you, Jez.
Yeah, love that answer. And it's really already sparked a lot of questions in me already. So I'm very excited to get into these next few. Graham, I'll throw over to you. You've got the next question. So tell us a bit about your question, why you chose it.
Cheers, thanks. I'd really like to, but I'm quite overcommitted right now. So no. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, thank you. Have a good night.
I am so depressed right now. I'm executing my calendar. Part of me literally just wants to take a baseball bat to my calendar. But
Right.
yeah. Anyway.
You just want to get rid of it.
Let's move on from there. So my question was, in the context of unwanted or perhaps unnecessary intrusions into our time and people having access to our calendar. I've already made a note, thank you, Lisa, to block my calendar from everybody else in the company because I have the power. So that's exciting. Looking forward to that.
Look at the power I've given you.
What have you created? I was curious about, in your experience, what's I'm not sure if there's a number one, but what are some of the more common reasons or fears, I should say, usually when, in an organisational context, when somebody comes along and says, oh, can you do this? Or they just drop their monkey in our lap, so to speak. What are some of the more common fears behind people not saying no?
I think, well, they don't want to look bad, right, if it's their boss. And we also seem to tie being busy with being valuable, right? So saying a lot of people complain about, having full calendars, but then when they have an empty calendar, they don't know what to do with themselves, right? And people think that the reason people say yes to things is because they have FOMO, fear of missing out. So, they might say, hey, I wish I could say no to meetings. And then when they're not invited, they're mad, right? Well, am I not important anymore? But it's not FOMO. It's not fear of missing out. It's fear of being irrelevant. And that's different, right? So, I might not care at all about the meeting, but why am I not there? Am I not valuable? Am I not seen as a contributor? So that's the fear, is being irrelevant. And the more we can make people feel, we have a thing at my company, and we do this with NBC Universal as well. I have a team down there at 30 Rock right now. And the thing that we both do is we uninvite people to meetings. We make it part of our culture to be uninvited. It's a badge of honor, because your time is too important. So when you flip it on the head and say, you know what, you can't be here, it's way too important, then people are like, yeah, I'm too important, I can't be there. And it changes the culture and how we think about being included versus not being included. So that's the fear, right? Being relevant, not missing out.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether it's just a cultural thing down here because we're so much closer to Antarctica than everybody else. One of the fears that sometimes prompts people to say yes to meetings that they would otherwise not attend, and it's a terrible acronym, so I need to come up with a better one, but it's essentially the fear of being voluntold. So the only person who's not in the meeting is the person who gets voted to do pretty much all of the stuff that everybody else at the meeting doesn't want to do.
That's true. Pile on to that.
But I love this idea of getting people to be more aware of what's literally behind their tendency to say yes to everything. And as they become more aware of that, then you can give them some strategies to help address that.
Yeah, and I think it's not just at work, it's also in your personal life, right? When you hear about, it's like when you're not included in an event or a party, you wonder, like, am I not important? It's not that you're sad you're missed out. It's, am I not important or relevant that I can't be there? So I think it spills over into all parts of our lives.
Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, yeah. And sorry, just one other really quick question. So can I use this as permission / authority?
Yes. I'm just learning to say no. Keep going.
To absent myself from all future magical learning meetings. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. I say yes. I say yes to say no.
And
Very good.
If we pause now for 28 and a half seconds, even though you're on the other side of the planet, you will hear just drifting across on the air sounds of cheering from everybody else at Magical Learning.
Okay. And Lisa, we have one meeting a week.
That's what we have. I mean, it's, and I say that sometimes to clients and they laugh because, I'm a small company, right? And I'm sure you all we may be of similar size, right? I'm less than 20 people, but we only have one meeting a week too. That's it. Yeah. So, the rest is that we have a lot of ad hoc meetings, but only one thing on the calendar where people feel obligated to come.
Well, thank you so much for this, Lisa and Graham. Great questions there. Such interesting conversations. I wanted to just quickly touch on, Lisa. Actually, you know what? I'll save my thoughts for my question. Let's go to Alan's questions now. Alan's asked, do you have any advice on how to debureaucratize our workspace, especially for people who feel like they must tick every box and feel guilty stopping at 80, 90%, which is often good enough?
Well, I think it's how we need to rethink how we work, right? We don't want to let how we work get in the way with what we were hired to do. That's the issue, right? So what I like to talk about is rethinking how we work. So there's a few principles I like to talk about. The first one is we have to remember that being organized isn't being simplified. So for those type A anal people you're talking about that need to tick every box, I am one of them. I love a wonderful to-do list. It makes me feel so amazing when I cross stuff off it. Like it's a dopamine hit, right? You feel so amazing. However, what you realize is being organized isn't being simplified, right? You're just being able to better, that's a sense of control. That's not a sense of getting time back. And I always liken that to, like Marie Kondo. Marie Kondo wasn't great because she organized your closet. She didn't organize all the things in your closet. She got rid of the crap so that you could see the stuff that was in it, right? And the same thing at work. I'm not telling people to look at their inbox and look at every email and say, does this bring you joy? Because it won't, right? Not every email is going to bring you joy. I guarantee it. However, it's about getting rid of stuff, right? You feel better not when your inbox is nice in folders. You feel better when your inbox is at 0. So that's one of the principles. And there's a couple more. It's, that's the having the compass rather than the clock. Right? So you're not just living by your calendar. You're thinking of the big picture. And I think it's also realizing that at work, we have to reward not just doing more, adding, but subtracting. And this gets back to the whole fear thing is, if we want to create the space for time to think, if we want to create the space to innovate and do important work, we've got to get rid of things to do that. And we've got to build in not processes, we've got to build in a culture where getting rid of things is okay. And most companies don't get rid of things. Right? We have an ego attached to things. So if we get rid of it, it's a loss and I must have done something wrong. The best companies build in getting rid of things. And I've got examples of that we can talk about, but it's important.
Yeah, that's such an interesting concept, the simplification of everything. I think that's very important for a lot of people because it's very easy to feel overwhelmed at the moment. I would actually love if you jumped into one of those examples because I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, the idea is it's about getting rid of that unplanned and unnecessary stuff, right? So you can make the space for the stuff that does matter. And Sanofi, the French pharmaceutical company, we work with them. And one of the things that they do is something called Stop It. And what they do with their strategic planning and project plans, right, is, when everyone presents their plan for the year, right? Most people have just done that of all the things they're going to do next year, all the goals. And of course, you look at it and you're like, there's no freaking way you're going to get all those things done. So what they also mandate people do in their plans is to present all the things they commit to stop doing next year as well. So that's cool, right? So it's like, here's all I'm going to do, but then here's all the things that I probably will say are barriers, and I'm going to stop doing them. And I'm going to get permission from you, boss, that that's okay. So it's cool. I think that's a great thing to build into your plans.
Well, I think through this conversation, I feel like my understanding of how important time is has really shifted and how important it is to use it with intention. One thing that keeps flashing in my mind very loudly, and I'd just be interested to get your thoughts on this, Lisa, is obviously one thing that uses a lot of time is social media. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. You got to help me.
Okay.
Well, you know what the issue is for me is that, this is where I'm a hypocrite because I am good at organizing and I am good at getting my time back and all those things. But at night to decompress, I just want to get in bed. I want to put on some soft clothes, as they say, and maybe a glass of wine. And I want to I just want to scroll. I want to do something mindless. Unfortunately, social media ticks that box. I could read a book. I've got a big stack next to my bed. They will collect dust the entire year. So, let's be honest. But I do feel like that's where you do have to time box yourself. I know some people that have deleted apps, right? And they set an alarm for when they not just wake up or when they have to go to bed.
That is a pretty good system. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. Yeah. All right, well, I wanted to jump into my question now here because I'm very similar with the social media before bed. I find it a very easy decompression tool. It feels like what it's built for, really, in some ways, but it's just a little too addictive sometimes for me. If I'm feeling a bit
dumber every night. It's fantastic.
All right. Well, I wanted to jump into my question because when I was looking at the topic, I thought that there was a lot of different elements that were kind of interesting. And, you've got a lot of different things in your background. You've got futurism as a skill. You've got change management. So there's a lot of interesting things that I find fascinating. So I thought I would just throw it over to you. And my question is, if a genie gave you 3 wishes to transform all workplaces into more ideal workplaces, what would they be?
Oh, my God. Well, that doesn't have to do just with subtractions or with simplicity. But I will say this. The big answer to your question is simplicity drives culture, right? Because if you get the work right, you get the culture right. And the reason I say this is because I think culture is the work you do every day. We think it's something bigger and more creative than that, but really it's like when you come home at night and someone says to you, what did you spend your day doing? If the answer is meetings and emails, that is your culture. If the answer is innovation and, all the other things you get hired to do, growth and cool business models, that's your culture. So getting the work right is really important because it drives culture, I think. So what would I have organizations do? The first thing I would have them do is, we say the 3 E's. We've got to have them eliminate things that are unnecessary to create the space for change. And we do that by killing stupid rules. I'll come back to that. We embed getting rid of things, subtraction, into the culture, because rules are like weeds, they grow back. And so we do that by, and I'll talk to you about that. And then the final thing is we empower people to do it, to take away the fear. Because, if we can tell people to get rid of things all you want, but if the boss isn't doing it, they sure as hell aren't doing it. Right? So I can dive a little deeper on a couple of those that are really, really kind of fun. So like the first thing is eliminating things, because then you create the space for more meaningful work to happen, right? And we did this thing with Pfizer. We've done it with Google, and we've done it with Fidelity and Citigroup, where we get their executives in the room and we say, if you could get rid of any 2 rules that hold you back from doing what you want to do, what would they be? And I'm telling you, it lights the room on fire. Like just by asking, because no one asks, right? We literally come up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of suggestions. And the aha is most of the things aren't rules. They're rarely rules. They're annoyances. They're rules that have not been rules for decades and nobody told people, stuff like that. And the result of that is that the teams get aligned and they're like, yeah, they get on board, let's kill that. And they all together start seeing how subtraction is really powerful. I mean, like at Pfizer, it was $250,000 saved and hundreds of rules in less than an hour. I mean, just because I asked a question, that's it, right? I mean, Accenture liked it so much, they created a rule graveyard where they put the rules that they kill on little tombstones on the wall, because it's like a visual, right? For people to be like, we kill rules here. So that's one thing. And the other thing I'll say, like in how you embed it, because you can kill rules, but then they grow back, right? It's thinking differently about time. And I'll tell you this one story. I met the ex-CPO, Chief People Officer, at Kickstarter at an event. And she said, the way that we embedded simplification into our culture, because they were moving to this 4-day work week, which was a success, was we turned the culture so that everyone knew about time crime. So stealing someone's time is a crime. So if you sign people up for a meeting and you didn't ask them, or you take their time without asking, that is a crime. So it made people really think about how they used other people's time with intention, and meetings became a last resort. So it's that kind of stuff, right, that you build into the culture. That's a long story long, but the 3 E's, eliminate, empower, embed, really help people change the culture to be more intentional about it.
Wow, what a great example and such an interesting insight. I love that. I love how much of this conversation is just about removing things. I think that that's really such a fascinating way to look at things. So thanks for that, Lisa.
Yeah, great.
I'm going to jump onto Allegra's question now. So Allegra's written, what skills should I work on if I want to stop giving away time freely? How can I develop them?
Well, the biggest thing is having, what I call as a minimalist mindset, right? So it's, how do you have the mindset of what can I get rid of? And that's really important, right? Like, so for example, you approach everything thinking just because we can doesn't mean we should. That's kind of the thing. It's like, just because someone asks you doesn't mean you have to, or doesn't mean you should do it. And a minimalist mindset is like when people put things on a time diet, right? Does it have to be a 60-minute meeting? Maybe it's 30. Or maybe we change the frequency. I know it's weekly, but it sucks. Maybe we should make it monthly. There's a few other things I think that would be helpful, is not just being a minimal mindset, but also developing a healthy sense of curiosity. And what I mean by that is asking questions about work, right? Challenging how we work. And so when you ask people questions about, why are we doing it like this? Is it necessary for us to complete? What would happen if we got rid of this step? Who would miss it? It really makes people think without you looking like a jerk for suggesting it. And you get them on board because they really go, I don't know why we're doing this. It's just out of habit. So those are two, I would think. Minimalist mindset and curiosity really helps bring people along, I think, and get time back.
I know that's the other second thing about all these things that I'm really liking is that it's not only about simplification, but it's also about sort of unifying a team. Like these things, when you kind of give them a little bit of space, it can act as a sort of glue for people.
It can. Well, I mean, a couple things. One, because everyone gets space to start to think, which no one has time for, right? I love when I go and I talk to audiences and I say, how many people here wish they had more time to think? Everyone raises their hand. And I said, how do you actually find time to think? You know how many people put fake meetings on their calendar, right? That's how you do it. Everyone's executing the calendar. They can take your time. So they put fake meetings on their calendar and they don't tell anybody because they feel bad if they're taking time to think. Shouldn't I be busy? Right? You see the kind of conundrum that happens here. I think getting people in the habit that like having time to think can really it can build that camaraderie around like, should we do this? What else should we be doing? I think it's a really smart thing to do.
Lisa, I've heard of that fake meeting thing, but not for thinking time, for nap time. I had a friend who used to just put in 2 hours on occasional afternoons and just take a nap. So.
You know what? But some people need that because, there's such a rampant problem with burnout right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's, what we're talking about. It's not just getting time back so you can do more. It's, so you can kind of get your energy back. And people are burned out and they're disengaged because they're not doing meaningful things. If you're doing something meaningful, you don't get burned out. You could work all night long. But people are burned out because they're doing things that aren't meaningful. And that's why you need a nap during the day.
Totally. Well, I mean, speaking of burnout, that leads us right into our last written question here, which is from Kanika, which is, burnout is a big problem I'm noticing for a lot of my peers. What are some good ways to help prevent and then recover from burnout?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like defining what meaningful work is, I think is really important because, I mean, we've talked about setting boundaries, right? We've talked about questioning work. And I think that helps, right? That's like setting personal boundaries. But I actually think defining what meaningful work is important because then you can decide, well, what is worth my time? And actually, it's interesting because when I ask leaders, what do you wish people had more time to do? More important work. What is important work? And then they give me like a 10-sentence answer. So they kind of know, but we haven't clearly defined it. It would really help if you were with your team and had a collective definition for what is meaningful and what isn't, right? Because that gives you the guardrails of how to spend your time. And I think that would really minimize a lot of burnout because people would know they're spending their time on meaningful things and that gets them energized, not depleted.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating concept. It's really interesting that it's like happening more and more. I wonder what that sort of means in some ways, or maybe people were always getting burnt out before and they didn't know.
Yeah, they might have, right? Because I think also too, like if you looked at, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? Working even into the early Zeds, especially with .com, it was all about, put in the hours. People had 100-hour weeks, right? Or you had to be there, right? You had to be visible to be working. And that sucks because you weren't doing anything valuable. You're just kind of standing there. That's why I think some of these companies that are doing four-day work weeks, it's pretty cool. So it's not about quantity of time, it's about quality of work. And I think that's where burnout really, really starts to, improve, so to speak.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I've taken so many notes, and I'm sure Danette and Graham, I've seen them jotting down notes as well. So I might go to them. Danette, did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation?
Firstly, I had to find my unmute button.
She was in a meeting.
I was thinking. And in fact, Lisa, the whole thing, because I talk about adaptability and I love that concept of space because I talk a lot about, we're doing crazy stuff rather than really good stuff. So I just love some of your takeaways, like the compass versus the clock is so important for people to go, what is that meaningful? What is that important work? Giving people that permission to stop doing. I really loved the rule graveyard. That just to me was hilarious.
I can't take credit for it. Funny.
But it's beautiful, isn't it? Because it's sort of going, there is stuff that really we should be stopping to do, and let's start making that actually something visible so people go, oh, we can stop doing stuff that we don't think is meaningful and adding value. And I also really loved the time crime, where, again, just that intentionality of thinking about, if I'm going to hold this meeting, why am I bringing these people in? And, obviously then shrinking the time anyway. But, there's so many things that I've taken away from this that are just beautifully simplified ideas for people to take away and go, I could do that. We could do that. awesome. 100% sure we're going to ask you back again. I reckon, I'm just looking at Jez here, when we do one of our sandbox ones, I reckon Lisa will be awesome for one. We'll talk about that later, Lisa.
Yeah, I'd have to
but
hear
thank you so much.
Yeah, I really hope that people take away, like Danette, what you said, some of the practical tips, because I think the thing that people don't realize is there is more in their sphere of control to get their time back than they realize. You know, we often think it's like, I can't do that because someone's going to get mad at me or the boss won't let me. I think bosses are perfectly happy for people to be more productive. And I think employees are very happy to spend their time on more meaningful things. So it's a win-win for everybody. You just have to try it. Try one thing and you'll get some time back. It'll be worth it.
Awesome. Thank you so much there, Lisa. Graham, did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation?
Quite a few. But I look, to be perfectly honest, I had a little nap in the middle, so I missed some of the stuff.
I saw it.
Yeah, thanks for not pointing it out, Lisa. I appreciate it. Yeah, look, when are you coming down? I guess that's probably the first thing. This whole, you just come to Australia. It's safe. All of the lies that are told on social media, and people out there who are spreading these vicious rumours about things that may somehow cause you to be a little bit unwell in Australia. It's not true.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Good. Then come on down.
I will be there tomorrow.
Come on down. We'll pick you up at the airport. Just let us know what time you're coming in. So much content, and we definitely do need to get you back. If I can just pause for a second for this is for the audience. So if there are any rules out there listening or watching to this podcast in 2025, feeling a little bit put out and put upon and vilified, it's not about you. You are safe. Some of us still love you, just in your little corner over there. New Zealand, that's where we'll send all of the rules to New Zealand, because they don't have any of the venomous creatures because they're all in Australia. I love the idea of getting the execs, because a lot of this, talk about culture, and I agree 100%, the culture is what we do. Now, forget about the vision, mission, values, all that sort of waffle that we put up on posters on the walls. It's literally, it's the behaviour that we display, the behaviour we condone in the organisations. It's how we do things. It's a bigger part of the culture. So the idea that you absolutely have to have that senior level, the C-suite, the exec level support to help make this work. The 4-day work week, it's not a surprise. Probably one of the biggest surprises is that it's not as common yet as it could be.
Agree.
In terms of, yeah. And I one of the other things, sorry, just really quickly, that really resonated for me was the burnout buster, this idea of meaningful work.
Yeah.
Which is really hard, I think, to retrofit for people who are already in an organisation and they start to realise that, this work has no meaning for me, in which case it's a lot harder to show up and to really rock your day every day because the work doesn't have meaning. So I guess that part of the challenge then is for each of us to work out, well, if what I'm doing now has no real meaning for me, then I really need to go and find something that does.
That's right.
Brilliant.
Good call.
Thank you. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that, Graham, and great questions today. I also had so many notes. The thing that I was most fascinated with was how much we don't use our time with intention. That, even though that was at the very beginning, that really struck me, and that we're madder about people taking money than time. I mean, we discussed that, but what a fascinating concept. And then, of course, I'm going to be using, I'm so overcommitted everywhere and anywhere.
Anywhere you can.
That's it. Lisa, did you have anything that you wanted to leave the listeners with today? Any last things about this conversation?
Well, first of all, on simplification, just try one thing. I mean, there is more in their sphere of control and their power than they realize. And it would be transformational if they just got a couple hours back a week. So that's what I would say to them. And come visit me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to link in with people. And you can find me either at futurethink.com, which is my organization, or lisabodell.com. And there's some free resources there and more on simplification they can learn.
Fantastic. And Lisa, we've got a lot of readers in our listeners. You've also got some books. Did you want to talk about your writing at all?
My books. My God, you can be my agent. I forgot. Yes, feel free to go on to Amazon. There's 2 books. One, my first book was called Kill the Company. So I like to be provocative. And that's about putting yourself out of business before somebody else does. And then the book on simplification is Why Simple Wins. And hopefully there's a whole chapter just on a lot of the tools that people can start to use.
Well, Lisa, it's been an absolutely amazing chat. A great last one to record in 2024. I know that you're enjoying it in 2025, listeners. And viewers. But thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, Danette and Graham. What a great conversation. To everybody that's been liking and subscribing on YouTube or wherever you're listening to podcasts, please keep doing that and sharing that. We're really enjoying the growing numbers there. And as always, everybody, have a magical week.